Is it possible for an entire city to disappear without a trace? Throughout history, powerful civilizations have fallen, but they always left something behind. Broken columns, half-erased inscriptions, forgotten tombs. However, there is a puzzling case that has left archaeologists and scientists baffled to this day. A city that seemed to have been swallowed by the earth itself, taking with it its people, its secrets, and its legacy. What really happened? Was it a natural disaster, a forgotten invasion, or something even stranger? In the throbbing heart of Southeast Asia, beneath the nearly impenetrable canopy of the Cambodian jungle, lies a city that once defied time and oblivion, Mahendraparvata. It was the 14th century. While medieval cities flourished in Europe and empires like Mali rose in Africa, in Cambodia, a civilization was building something extraordinary. Mahendraparvata, which means the mountain of great Indra, was not just a collection of isolated temples in the thicket. It was a vibrant, sprawling metropolis, planned with a complexity that rivaled, and in some aspects surpassed, any other contemporary city. Mahendraparvata was conceived as more than a human settlement. It was a manifestation of divine power over the land, an architectural projection of Hindu cosmology, where temples represented sacred mountains and canals flowed like celestial rivers. Every building, every path, every pond was carefully placed following sacred principles, oriented towards the stars and the eternal cycles of nature. Forgotten chronicles, transmitted fragmentarily through legends and oral traditions, describe a city that shone under the tropical sun, stone roads extending like veins through the jungle. Temple towers covered in white stucco gleamed like sacred beacons amidst the overwhelming green. Markets filled with exotic goods, monks, warriors, peasants, and artisans, coexisting in a carefully structured society. And yet, a century later, everything had vanished. There were no detailed accounts of its fall. No epic inscriptions survived narrating its abandonment. No battle cemeteries were found, nor signs of sudden destruction. Only silence. A heavy, green, humid silence. The silence of a jungle that, like a shroud of centuries, covered the streets, the temples, the squares, and the dreams of an entire people. Why did Mahendraparvata disappear so completely that even later kings, the chroniclers of Angkor, seemed to forget its existence? How could a city of such size and sophistication be devoured almost without a trace? These questions would obsess generations of explorers, historians, and archaeologists. And as technology advanced, along with our ability to see beyond what the eyes allow, answers began to emerge, but also new mysteries. The jungle, in its infinite patience, not only covered the stone, it digested it. Trees grew over collapsed roofs, roots opened cracks in the temples, moisture erased inscriptions and frescoes that narrated the dreams of an entire civilization. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, the course of history continued. New empires rose, old empires fell, and Mahendraparvata became increasingly an unrecognizable shadow, a lost whisper among the underbrush. The few who still spoke of the lost city did so in mythic tones. They said it was devoured by the jungle due to the arrogance of its kings, or that its inhabitants vanished after angering the gods. Some wandering hunters and monks swore they had seen moss-covered towers, statues of forgotten faces emerging like ghosts in the morning mist, but such tales were dismissed as superstitions. Centuries passed, trade routes changed, maps evolved, and the mountain where Mahendraparvata once stood became just another geographical accident in an increasingly misunderstood territory. It wasn't until the 19th century that European explorers, thirsty for archaeological glory, began to take a serious interest in rumors of hidden cities in the heart of Cambodia. Inspired by the rediscovery of Angkor Wat, some adventurers began to venture into the jungle, armed only with compasses, machetes, and an obsessive desire to find Asia's forgotten jewels. But the jungle was cruel. Diseases, wild animals, impossible paths, and the suffocating weight of tropical heat stopped most. Mahendraparvata continued to resist its encounter with the modern world. For a long time, its real existence was questioned. Was Mahendraparvata a pious myth, an exaggeration of ancient chronicles, or simply a confusion of forgotten names? Early archaeology, limited by rudimentary techniques and colonial arrogance, barely scratched the surface. Many explorers preferred to keep digging in Angkor, where the visible temples promised more immediate glory. Thus, Mahendraparvata remained intact beneath its cloak of vegetation. The more its name was forgotten, the deeper it seemed to sink into the earth itself, like a heavy dream refusing to awaken. It wasn't until the late 20th century that history took a turn. Technology, slowly but surely, began to overcome the barriers that had protected the secret of the lost city for centuries. The arrival of satellite imagery allowed for the detection of geometric alterations beneath the jungle. Straight lines, impossible patterns in nature, began to emerge on the screens of incredulous researchers. Yet the dense foliage remained an impenetrable curtain. Only the advancement of a revolutionary tool would change everything. LiDAR, an aerial mapping technique based on laser pulses. In 2012, a team led by Cambodian and Australian archaeologists and scientists decided to apply it to a vast area north of Angkor. What they found exceeded all their boldest expectations. LiDAR revealed an entire city hidden beneath the underbrush. Roads, canals, temples, dams, entire neighborhoods of constructions that until then were invisible to the human eye. It was confirmation. Mahendraparvata had existed. Not only was it real, but its extent rivaled and even surpassed that of Angkor at its peak. It was an extraordinary discovery. The geometric patterns formed an organized urban network, with grids of housing, complex hydraulic systems, and temples seemingly arranged according to a master plan inspired by the cosmos. Many smaller temples, previously ignored, gained new importance. They were pieces of a forgotten puzzle that was finally beginning to be reconstructed before the eyes of the modern world. The excitement among the archaeologists was palpable. They had found a city that redefined what was known about the power and sophistication of the Khmer Empire in its golden age. But as timid excavations began, unsettling questions also arose. Why had Mahendraparvata been abandoned so completely? What chain of events had led to its absolute collapse? Signs of massive erosion, channel blockages, indications of minor conflicts, and migrations pointed to a slow catastrophe, not a single event. Mahendraparvata had died from 1,000 small cuts. The story of its rise and fall was not just that of a forgotten city. It was a cautionary mirror, a reminder that even the most advanced civilizations can be defeated by nature and by themselves. The jungle, patient and silent, had waited. When humans faltered, it simply reclaimed what was its own, without the need for battles or cataclysms, just through the slow passage of time. Today, archaeologists proceed with respect, knowing that Mahendraparvata is more than an archaeological site. It is a living testament to human fragility in the face of a natural balance that should never have been broken. Every stone, every path discovered beneath the underbrush is a recovered story, a voice returning from centuries of oblivion to remind us of what we were and what we could become again. The first ground expeditions after the LiDAR discoveries were arduous. The jungle did not yield easily. Every meter conquered required cutting roots, clearing mud, and dodging snakes and tropical diseases. Still, the archaeologists were determined. Each structure uncovered confirmed the monumental scale of Mahendraparvata. It was more vast than any legend or ancient chronicle had suggested. They found forgotten temples, statues decapitated by centuries of humidity, elevated paths barely visible beneath layers of mud. The urban layout showed rigorous and sophisticated planning. Mahendraparvata was not an improvised city. It was the result of an ambitious vision to conquer the mountain, tame nature, replicate the order of the cosmos on Earth. However, greatness was also its doom. Soil studies revealed deep damage caused by massive deforestation. Without trees, erosion devastated the irrigation and food systems. The canals designed to control monsoon rains collapsed. The dams burst. Crops repeatedly failed. Mahendraparvata began to die from hunger and despair. The religious elite tried to maintain control through increasingly elaborate rituals, but the people were losing faith. Migration to more fertile areas began quietly, then became unstoppable. Meanwhile, external enemies lurked. The kingdom of Ayutthaya, growing and aggressive, launched attacks on the northern provinces. Isolated, Mahendraparvata became indefensible. There was no epic battle recorded, only a gradual abandonment. Like an untreated open wound, the city slowly bled out until it was empty. The temples were left in the care of the surviving monks, but even they, when supplies ran out, fled or perished. The jungle eventually enveloped them. Over time, Mahendraparvata became a blurry memory. The few villagers passing nearby avoided getting close. They spoke of spirits, ancient curses, and forgotten warnings. Modern rediscovery allowed for the reconstruction of this tragic story. Each analyzed structure, each inspected canal, provided new clues about the rise and collapse of the lost city. The lesson was clear: no technology, no matter how advanced, can ignore the limits of nature. Human arrogance has consequences, inevitable and relentless. Mahendraparvata fell due to a combination of ecological errors, social tensions, external enemies, and natural disasters. It was not a single blow. It was a slow agony of accumulated mistakes. Today, walking along the paths once trodden by kings and monks, only the bird's song and the jungle's whisper reclaiming its right can be heard. Archaeologists work with utmost care. Each excavation is also an act of humility, recognizing that history is fragile, that what we build can fade faster than we think. Some temples have been partially restored. Others are left as they are, embraced by giant roots like silent witnesses to the inevitable fusion of culture and nature. Mahendraparvata did not just disappear, it was absorbed. It was not destroyed by a visible enemy, but by a silent enemy, the lack of respect for the environment that sustained it. This story resonates powerfully in our time, as we also face global ecological and social crises. Will we learn anything from Mahendraparvata before repeating its fate? Every finding on the mountain is not just archaeology. It is a mirror to our own future. The question is no longer what destroyed Mahendraparvata, but what will destroy our own cities if we do not change. Mahendraparvata thus becomes a silent warning, a lost voice returning to us not to tell of its past glory, but to teach us of its fall. Human greatness without ecological wisdom is doomed to be a footnote in the vast history of the planet, a mere whisper in the infinite jungle. The true enemy of civilizations is not time, nor enemy armies, nor angry gods. It is the arrogance of believing we can dominate nature without consequences. Mahendraparvata fell, and in its fall it left a legacy we are only now beginning to understand, that empires do not fall due to a single mistake, but due to the sum of many small blind spots. Today, as we fly over the mountain with LiDAR, we see the ghosts of streets, squares, and temples, but we also see, etched in the very ground, a silent message about the cost of ignoring limits. One day, perhaps, another civilization will find our abandoned cities and ask, as we do, how could something so great, so fast, so silently disappear? The story of Mahendraparvata is not over. It continues to be written in every excavation, in every study, in every reflection on our place in the world. Perhaps the lost city, instead of a final warning, is also an opportunity. The chance to listen to the past before the present also becomes ruin. Today, Mahendraparvata remains the subject of intense research. Each new archaeological campaign reveals fragments of the daily life of its ancient inhabitants, bringing us closer to their lost world. Agricultural tools, fragmentary inscriptions, remains of humble dwellings, evidence of intense trade, and even hastily abandoned religious rituals have been found. It was not just a city of temples and kings. It was also a city of farmers, merchants, children, and elders, all part of a living network that slowly extinguished. The discovery has forced a rewriting of fundamental parts of Southeast Asian history. The Khmer Empire was larger, more complex, and sophisticated than previously believed. Mahendraparvata shows that its power did not only lie in Angkor. There were satellite cities, communication networks, and hydraulic management that sustained the empire from multiple cores. This rediscovery has also inspired renewed interest in pre-modern cultures that understood and sometimes challenged natural balances to expand. Ecological collapse, resource overexploitation, climate change are not modern phenomena. They exacted their toll centuries ago in places like Mahendraparvata. The progressive deterioration of its hydraulic system, loss of fertile soils, forced migrations, are echoes of processes we now see replicated on a planetary scale. That's why Mahendraparvata is not just an archaeological site, it's an uncomfortable mirror. It shows us how ambition without sustainability inevitably leads to collapse. The archaeologists working among its ruins do so with a sense of urgency. Each discovery is also a reminder. Nothing is eternal if not cared for. The story of the lost city resonates especially strongly in an era where our own megacities face invisible yet deadly threats. Water scarcity, soil degradation, loss of biodiversity, mass displacements. The signs are there, just as they were for Mahendraparvata. But just as they did not see or did not want to see, will we be able to act before it's too late? Mahendraparvata did not collapse in a single day. It was a process of generations, a constant erosion of resilience until there was no turning back. Similarly, our own world will not fall immediately. It will be a slow wear, a chain of small, poorly made decisions, invisible until it's irreversible. That's why the memory of Mahendraparvata matters. It reminds us that collapse is not an act of sudden destruction, but a consequence of repeated arrogance. Today, conservation teams fight to preserve what remains, restoring temples, protecting artifacts, preventing the jungle from swallowing it all again. But there is a palpable respect in their efforts. They do not seek to impose dominion over nature, but to coexist, learn from it, adapt to its rhythm. Perhaps that is the true legacy Mahendraparvata can offer us, understanding that human greatness is only sustainable if it respects the rhythms of the earth. Every root that embraces a stone is a lesson in patience. Every vine that hides a temple is a reminder of humility. Nature does not destroy, it renews. The open question is profound. Can we build civilizations that grow in harmony with their environment rather than against it? History shows that when we ignore that question, the end is always the same: silence, oblivion, disappearance. But it also shows that memory, though buried under centuries of earth, can resurface if we are willing to listen to it with attention and reverence. Today, Mahendraparvata sings again, not with the voice of drums or rituals, but with the whisper of the wind in the trees that protect it. Its legacy is not only in the recovered stones, but in the warnings that, like echoes, travel through time to speak to us. Every visit to its ruins, every image of its temples engulfed by the jungle, is an invitation to reflect on our future and our choices. Because in every stone of Mahendraparvata, there is a story that whispers, "Nothing you build will be eternal if you forget to respect the land that sustains you." And it is in that whisper where perhaps the greatest lesson lies before we too disappear without a trace. Mahendraparvata is a whisper from the past, but also a shout toward the future. Not just a lost city, it is a warning written in the very earth. Its broken temples and forgotten paths are like open scars narrating the mistakes of those who once dominated nature and were dominated by it. Every crack in its walls is an echo of human decisions. Cut more, build more, exploit more, until the balance shattered irreparably. Today, under the green canopy of Cambodia, Mahendraparvata does not ask to be rebuilt. It asks to be understood. Its ruin is its message. Its silence is its voice. In a world where our cities grow without limit, where forests fall and seas rise, do we really believe we are far from repeating its story? Mahendraparvata fell not for lack of ingenuity, but for excess of confidence, for believing that its dominion over nature would be eternal, unbeatable, unchangeable. History shows that no civilization, no matter how powerful, is invulnerable to time, nor to the consequences of its own blindness. Its broken canals, its temples devoured by roots, are monuments not to failure, but to pride, a reminder that the natural world will always have the last word. Perhaps its disappearance was not a divine punishment, nor an inevitable tragedy. Perhaps it was simply the logical consequence of ignoring the signs the world offered. It has been said that Mahendraparvata disappeared without a trace, but that is not entirely true. It left invisible scars that we can still trace if we know where to look. It warns us that ignoring the world's balance condemns us to disappear, slowly but inevitably, as they did, as everything that challenges the earth will. Perhaps there is still time to listen to that whisper, to change, to build a civilization where growth does not mean destruction, where the future is not written in ruins. Every step among the remnants of Mahendraparvata should be a silent vow. Never forget, never repeat, never underestimate the forces that sustain life. It's not just about preserving old stones or restoring fallen temples. It's about restoring our lost connection with the natural world that gave us birth. Mahendraparvata is both a warning and an opportunity to learn, to grow differently, to avoid falling into the same trap of arrogance and forgetfulness. In its now invisible streets, in its squares devoured by vines, still lives a dream, the dream of a world where man remembers he is also part of nature. If we ignore its lesson, we will end up like them, remembered only as a curiosity, a mystery, an empty echo lost in the books of archaeology. But if we listen to its voice, if we heed its warning, Mahendraparvata will not have fallen in vain. It will become a beacon, a faint light guiding us through the darkness of our own uncertainties. Perhaps this is how lost cities remain alive, not in their material grandeur, but in the wisdom that their silent ruins can still offer us. Today, Mahendraparvata remains covered in trees, bathed by eternal rains, hidden beneath the fog. But its message is as clear as a bird's song in the morning. Nothing that ignores the rhythms of the earth can endure. Nothing that destroys its roots can expect to survive. Human civilization, like Mahendraparvata, is suspended in a delicate balance that must not be taken for granted. And if we forget this lesson, history will not remember us with honors, only with the same whisper with which we speak of them today, a sad whisper lost in the wind. May Mahendraparvata not be just a forgotten chapter. May it be the beginning of a new story, a story where learning from the past is our salvation. Because deep down, the greatest legacy of Mahendraparvata is not in what they built, but in what we can avoid destroying thanks to their memory. And perhaps in that small act of humility and learning, we will finally find a way to endure, to not disappear without a trace.